Hello and welcome back to Continental Club Extra. Sadly, the World Cup is over after that fantastic finale between Argentina and France. But we're getting back to what we do best on Euro Football Daily, transfer gossip. And I've got the best possible lineup as well. Henry Hill and Michael McCubbin. Welcome back to the non-World Cup arena, lads. Today we're talking about João Félix because he is one of the hottest topics this January because the Atleti CEO Ángel Gil Martín basically admitted that the club would be willing to sell him in January. He said that the 23-year-old was a top talent, a world-class player, but that the relationship between him and Simeone, the minutes played and the motivation for the player might mean that he ends up seeking a move in January, and they would be willing to sell him if the price was right. Henry, there are two main Premier League clubs that are seemingly interested in Arsenal and Man United. Do you think Arsenal makes a little bit more sense than Man United?
Personally, no. In all honesty, I just think that if you're looking at what Arsenal have and are maybe lacking right now, I think they need more of an out-and-out centre forwards. Because I think we need to remember that João Félix likes to drop left. He likes to sort of push out wide a little bit. He's not always massively comfortable through the middle, which is where he'd be playing. And at the moment, we see Martinelli often take that left flank in the attack. And I don't think that it'd be right, really, to bring in someone to take his place in competition. But I mean, let's have it right. As you kind of alluded to, he's a great player. He's a world-class talent on his day. I think he's playing in completely the wrong system at Atletico Madrid under a manager. In my opinion, they should bank on Felix as the long-term asset and not Simeone at this point in time. But, you know, at Atletico, they've got to make a bit of money in this winter window. But yeah, if we look at his numbers, 0.4 goals and assists per game during his time in Atletico, 33 goals, 18 assists in 129 games. It's not great, is it? But we've all seen glimpses of quality in him when he's been given that kind of freedom run in the side. I said it before, I think against Cadiz he came off the bench late and scored 2 amazing goals for the club this year. He's obviously looks a bit frustrated. And then he went to the World Cup with Portugal and he looked like a pretty decent player, didn't he? 1 goal, 2 assists in 4 games. Okay, his numbers weren't particularly exceptional, but I mean, international football is tricky, isn't it? I mean, but I still think that we saw a lot of talent in throughout his performances to suggest that he could be the man to make a difference. I think in that game against Morocco, he was the one really pressing the agenda more than any other player in that Portuguese side. Just came up against a very stubborn defence, almost got a goal in that too. So yeah, I just don't think that as an out-and-out striker, as someone who isn't, an out-and-out striker, that necessarily Arsenal's the side for him. I actually saw that Cunha is linked with them this morning, Mateus Cunha, as maybe a stopgap. If Jesus is really injured, I think so. Cunha, who I know hasn't had a great time at Atletico either. Felix is sort of friend over there, but as a forward, I would rather sort of see that as a short-term option than gamble massive money on Felix when I think there's other areas of the Arsenal squad they could improve. Or obviously Vlahovic, who they've been linked with in the past, famously ignored, weren't they, before he went to Juventus. I think that'd be a great transfer. So yeah, Felix to Arsenal's not quite for me.
Fair enough. Yeah, it feels like it's a tricky one with Arsenal this winter window because I think Gabriel Jesus is due back in February and he will be the number 1 striker with Eddie Nketiah as backup, you know, who's a perfectly able backup as well. But do they want to spend 60, 70 million pounds on João Félix when they probably need to strengthen at defensive midfield? They're talking about bringing in Mykhailo Mudryk as well, an out-and-out winger as well. So it feels like maybe this isn't the best use of funds for Arsenal in this window.
If they're going to buy Mudryk, then why would you buy Felix as well?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense, okay. Yeah. So Arsenal, we're not so sure on that. McCubbs, Can you be a little bit more positive about United? I mean, you probably have a greater need for a forward this January with everything that's gone on at the club over the last few months.
Yes, but again, it comes down to banking on a player who is yet to have, had a consistently brilliant season, since leaving Benfica. When was it? In 2019. The one thing I'll say about Arsenal is because they've got a more settled system there, and actually Felix is very versatile as well. I actually don't. It kind of depends in some ways. I think Felix actually, as a Gabriel Jesus kind of stand-in, is more stylistically similar than someone like Eddie Nketiah. He's more creative, isn't he? He can dribble. His dribbling ability is brilliant, and he can score goals from the left as well. So if you did need that Martinelli replacement, someone slightly different, I think Mudryk is probably a more similar player to Martinelli in many ways in terms of the way that he likes to attack. And also, I don't know, I've always kind of wanted to see Felix in a kind of 10 role as well. So, yeah, like he would be a luxury great option, but at the same time, I think he needs to go somewhere where he's going to start every game, Felix. I think, he's not, he's been frustrated, like Henry was saying, at Atleti. There's been, reported tension between him and the kind of, Simeone and the kind of general hierarchy, and he's been, there were kind of reports that he was feeling quite depressed and was, seeking help and stuff. So he's had a bit of a rough time of it there. And I kind of think, when you're an Arsenal, Man United, spending that kind of money on a player who's not necessarily going to start every game, I think is a bit of a risk. I think he needs to go somewhere where he's going to be instilled with a lot of confidence. And so I kind of feel like with United, again, it's kind of like, well, there's not actually been any sounds coming out of the club itself that João Félix is going to be like a top target. We saw in the summer that, widely reported that, they were really hot on Gakpo, didn't go for him in the end because Antony cost too much, and ultimately Ten Hag was more keen to get Antony through the door. Ten Hag is a fan of Gakpo, and I think he offers more physically than João Félix in that centre forward position. Similarly versatile as well, and is just in better form at this moment in time. And ultimately, I think with United so far, the track record that Ten Hag has, obviously it's only been 6 months, but every signing he's brought in has been so far a success.
Absolutely.
I think you have to trust the manager on it so far. I don't know how long that strategy will work for United. In the long term, is just getting Ten Hag players in, the best idea. It carries its risks, but so far it's worked. And I just think, I really like João Félix. I really want to see him do well. And I think going into a more possession-based system, which both, United and especially Arsenal are, I think he can thrive. But the problem is, I don't think either of them he's a guaranteed starter at. More so at United, I think, because there just is a little bit more interchange. Like if he was to, he could take up the left wing position. Yeah. But Jadon Sancho is, away on one-on-one training at the moment. I don't think United are going to give up that, an asset like Sancho anytime soon. Ten Hag clearly is making a lot of effort for him to get back to the level that he was at when he joined the club. And they spent, that much money on a right winger already. It's a difficult one with João. I wish we kind of knew what his definitive best position was, because then I think we'd be able to pick a club out for him more quickly. But I think the main thing is that there's a manager out there who wants him to be the main man, because I think there is a sense of that with him. He's a real star player, and he was never worth 120, 130 million, but I think he is easily a 60, 70 million euro forward, and he just needs to be the main man somewhere. Yeah,
it was a gamble that Atleti took, and it's difficult to argue that it's completely come off. I think pound for pound, probably one of the worst signings in football history, to be honest, probably up there with Coutinho, Eden Hazard, etc. But it's not through want of trying, and he has shown glimpses, as we keep on saying. But there are, talks that he wants to join PSG. That's actually his top ambition. Get French Football News was reporting that. And with Messi's future beyond this season pretty uncertain, maybe that could be an option. But having said that, Mbappe has made perfectly clear over the last few months that he doesn't like playing as a 9, that he likes working off a pivot rather than being the pivot. And is João Félix a sort of got big enough stature, big enough physical gifts to lead the line consistently for PSG? I'm not quite so sure. There's another, probably link in the Premier League that makes a little bit more sense, maybe even more than Arsenal and Man United, and that's Chelsea, with Broja out for at least quite a few months with that bad injury. Aubameyang's obviously, deep into his 30s now. They've only scored 2 league goals between them, but even then, they've just signed Christopher Nkunku for July 2023, and surely he'll be brought in to lead the line there. So I'm a little bit confused about where he ends up. My preferred suggestion would be for him to go to a club like Napoli, replace Victor Osimhen at some stage in 2023, because that feels like the stature of club that he could thrive at. I'm not sure whether he's got the right physical or mental gifts to be the main man at Man United going forward, or Arsenal really. And at Arsenal, I think he'd end up being a stopgap quite quickly. So we're not really sure, guys. Where do you think João Félix should end up? Where do you think he'd choose between Man United and Arsenal? But we do have a fan opinion coming in to wrap up the show, coming in from Speedy Boys. We asked for a signing that made perfect sense in January, and this is what he suggested.
Hello AFD, Thank you for having me on the channel. The transfer I'd like to suggest is Randall Colomwani to Atletico Madrid. Atleti have been really struggling for goals this season. They have 21 goals in the league compared to 33 each for Barca and Real Madrid. Other than that, we also know that João Félix and Mateus Cunha both are heavily linked with away moves. And I think so Randall Colomwani really fits the profile they need.
So, Henry, we heard from Speedy Boys there that Randall Kolo Muani to Atletico Madrid as a potential João Felix replacement. Do you like that, hot or not?
Well, I like the idea of it. I don't like the idea of him, as in it would be a good signing for Atletico. I don't want Kolo Muani to go there.
Right.
That's the bottom line, really. What a great player, by the way. What a really, really good player. Epic for Nantes last season. 12 goals, 4 assists in 36 league and games, and he's absolutely hit the ground running. In Germany at the moment with Frankfurt, 5 goals, 9 assists in 14 games. That's so good. They're 4th at the moment. And obviously he's broken into the World Cup squad, scored after 46 seconds, was it, when he came off the bench? Mm-hmm. And then made a real impact. Was probably France's, next to Coman, probably their best player in that final, wasn't he? And almost got all the glory. And scored, but did get his penalty as well. So yeah, hot topic right now. Why would Frankfurt sell him? I mean, they'd have to throw silly money at them to sell, because I think Frankfurt are really a team in the ascension right now. I don't think they want to disrupt that kind of momentum by making decisions like selling good players the second 6 months after they bought them in. Bear in mind, it cost them nothing, so actually, I mean, they can make a serious profit on this guy. But yeah, he's great. We saw like what Moussa Dembele went there, didn't have a great time with it. I'm just not sure what striker. I mean, I think Morata's fine in that system. I think just sort of leave Morata there. I think he's as good as you can be. Works hard for the team. He hustles for Atletico. I don't want to see Kolo Muani go there at this point in his career. Although, if maybe with a change of manager, then yeah, sure, it'd be a great signing.
Fair enough. Yeah, it doesn't feel like this winter will be about bringing players in for Atleti Macabs. It feels like it will be more about departures and sales. But Kolo Muani, I mean, Macabs, his impact at Eintracht Frankfurt in the Bundesliga has been absolutely exceptional.
Yeah, he's been great. I mean, I do hope that sometime in the next 6 months, maybe we will actually recommend an attacker going to Atleti. It remains to be seen. I can't remember the last time it happened. But for the sake of Atleti fans. But yeah, I mean, he's been fantastic. And I think the main thing from his perspective is that he's on a real roll at the moment. Obviously, he's not been quite as, he's not been as a goal scorer at Frankfurt in the way that he was at Nantes, but I think the relationship that he has with Daichi Kamada and Jesper Lindstrom there is just great. I think it's one of the most entertaining kind of front threes in Europe this year, especially when you kind of go away from the elite clubs. They've just been so fun, like 9 assists in 14 games. So I'm reeling off the same stats that Henry was there, but yeah, he just looks really comfortable there. He's just really, I don't know, that forward line is really entertaining. I guess, one argument is that Frankfurt do like to play on the break, and they are effective at doing so. This Atleti team has kind of reverted to that kind of football again after what was, that kind of experimentation with more high possession football last term. So, like, I guess stylistically he could be like that guy, but I think to disrupt his momentum at the moment, going to an Atleti side which is still in a bit of a identity crisis of sorts, lots of question marks in multiple areas of that team, despite them having, a lot of talent in that side. Griezmann's coming back from, being, one of the best 3 players at the World Cup. Morata's obviously was in great form there as well. But yeah, I feel like it would still be a little bit knee-jerk. I'm interested to see what actual kind of World Cup premium players are actually going to make a move, because we've obviously never had this in a January window. It's doubly risky, isn't it, to spend that kind of money in January on a player who's impressed, at a tournament where, almost all the rules go out the window. So yeah, I would not. Yeah, I mean, I can see the logic, but I wouldn't back it.
Fair enough. I mean, speaking of January transfers on the back of World Cups, we're going to be covering that on this Friday's Continental Club, talking about January signings that may or may not make perfect sense. But I hope you guys enjoyed Continental Club Extra for today. Thank you very much to Speedy Boys for contributing his thoughts on Kolo Muani to Atletico Madrid. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to Eurofootball Daily, and we'll catch you later in the week. Bye-bye.